Egeria Peregrinatio, Episode 3. Valles autem ipsa ingens est valde, iacens subter latus montes Dei, quae habet forsitan quantum patuimus, videntes aesti mardere aut ipsi dicebant, in longo milia passos, forsitan sedicem, in lato autem quatuor milia esse appellabant, ipsam ergo valem nos traversare habebamus, ut possumus montem ingredi. Egeria continues her description of the valley near the mountain of God. The valley itself, Valles ipsa, moreover, is very large, ingens valde. Ingens is a third declension adjective. Like all third declension adjectives except for the comparatives, it is I stem. This one is called an adjective of one ending, because the masculine, feminine, and neuter in the nominative all have one form. Thus it is modifying, Valles, and valde, an adverb, is giving emphasis to the adjective ingens. The valley itself, moreover, is quite large. Iacens subter latus, lying or positioned, we might say. This is a participle, an adjective, from the verb iakeo, iakere, second conjugation verb, lying beneath subter, the latus, the side of the mountain of God. Latus is a neuter, singular, and accusative. This is a third declension noun. Latus is the nominative, and lateris is the genitive, latus lateris. So it's quite large. It lies beneath the side of the mountain of God. Quae, the antecedent being Valles, we know that because it is feminine, whereas mons montes is masculine, which, meaning the valley, has, perhaps, quantum patuimus videntes estimara, as much as we could, quantum patuimus, this is the perfect indicative active of the verb posse. It's perfect because built upon the third principal part, patui, as much as we could, as we looked at it, as we saw, estimate or make a guess, or they themselves, ipsi. This is a reference back in the previous paragraph to the deductores sancti illi, the holy guides, or as they themselves were saying, which has, perhaps, or we might say extends, in length, in longo, milia passos forsitan sedicem, which extends in length, perhaps forsitan, 16,000 sedicem, milia passos, 16,000 paces or steps. Passos is in classical Latin a fourth declension noun. Passus, passus is the genitive. It's masculine of the fourth declension. Here it is in the masculine of the second declension. In classical authors, moreover, this would typically be in the genitive plural, passuum, as a partitive genitive with the numeral milia, so thousands of paces, and then the indeclinable cardinal, typically sedicem, 16,000 steps. In other words, what we would say as 16 miles, though this is the Roman mile and not the English mile, which is a little bit longer than the Roman mile. And the English word mile comes from this word thousand, with reference to the number of paces. So much for its length in longo. In its breadth or width in lato autem, however, 4,000, they were saying that it was, appellabant. They were calling it or saying that it was 4,000 paces, that is 4 miles in width. Therefore, ipsam valem nos traversara habebamus. Therefore, the valley itself, ipsam valem, we had to pass through, traversare. This is a compound verb of trans and versare, to pass through. We had to pass through it, and habebamus here being used to connote necessity, obligation, is a late form. We would expect something more like debemus, or opus est, necessa est, apportet, something like that, if this were a classical author. We had to pass through the valley itself, ut possumus, purpose clause, in order that we be able, possumus, to approach ingredi, or come up to the mountain. And this is a present, possumus, a present subjunctive, and habebamus is an imperfect indicative, and so this would violate the sequence of tenses, strictly speaking, from the perspective of a classical author. If you've made it this far, you're wondering what this image is. This is a picture of Monte Cassino, the monastery in southern Italy where the Codex Aratinus was written, in which this work is found.